Hi, I'm Georgia Shakti-Hill. I want to welcome you to Living in Balance. I'm going to tell you that something wonderful is about to happen to your life because we're going to talk about the Ah-Haa course. Come join us. Jon Grady is the developer of the Ah-Haa course, and he says that if you sign up for this course, something wonderful is about to happen to your life. So I asked him if he would share that with you, our audience today. So welcome, Jon.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Well, what wonderful would happen to my life if I took the Ah-Haa course?
Oh, big question. People have named it the Ah-Haa course. It just evolved into that because of, they would sit there and they would go, aha, now I get it. Aha, now it all makes sense. Because these are people who, across the country, everywhere we've taken this course, they have spent years sincerely searching for their plan, their purpose, who am I, where do I come from, all the things that we all ask ourselves. And this course gives people the tools to go within and find those answers for themselves right there in the course.
During that day.
Right.
From 9 a.m. to 6 p.m.
It's not the kind of course that you hear a lot of good things and then have to go home and think about it and try to figure out how to incorporate it into your life. People are not the same when they leave that course at the end of that day as they were when they came in that morning.
Well, there is a universality of spiritual messages, spirituality from A to Z. You're sharing things that are the universal truths.
Well, that's how we begin the course. I call it spirituality A through Z, because people, no matter where they are on their path, their search, no doubt they have gotten different pieces of the puzzle, but they don't quite know where to fit it. I tell them, what's the first thing you do when you go to put together a jigsaw puzzle? And they all say, you build the border. And I say, before that, you still at least have seen the box cover. You know what the big picture is supposed to be.
Where you're going, sure.
And right. And so many people go and in their search and they find a piece here and a piece here, but they're just kind of holding it here because they don't know where to apply it. So that's why the beginning of the whole course lays out spirituality A through Z, how the universe works, the different universal laws, how it all intermeshes and works together. And right there starts all the ahas, because it clears up misconceptions, it clears up the confusion, gives people that big picture.
But you've been teaching this for a while. Where did you get your information? If you're sharing what are the universal truths and spirituality from A to Z, you had to have done some homework.
I've been doing homework for a long time. Well, let me just tell you what I even mentioned in the course. I say that I was very fortunate and I chose my parents very wisely. See, most children, if they're balanced and of a positive frame of mind, have imaginary playmates. Well, this is their team of helpers. This is their spirit guides. When they're born, they're testing the communication. But what happens? We get talked out of it. Grow up, put that aside, that's not real. But that is real from the spiritual point of view.
Yes.
And I was very fortunate because my mother was into these things, and so she didn't discourage me, she encouraged me. She would say things like, ask them what they're here to help you with. Ask them what they want to teach you today. And so I never lost that. It was never drummed out of me until I decided to lose it. And that happened when I first started school. I was horrified to find out that everybody else didn't see auras. Everybody else didn't know that they were sending and receiving thoughts and feelings back and forth to one another. Everybody didn't know that they had a team of spiritual help available to them, whether you call it angels, spirit guides, messengers of God, whatever you want to call it. And I was horrified that they didn't, I felt, how could they not know? It's so obvious because I'd been using it for years. And then the big trap came. You know how you want to fit in, be one of the people,
Well, sure.
blend,
Yeah.
you know, not
well, you're
be
peers. You're in a social situation.
for all the social reasons.
Sure.
And so I began to cut it off myself. I remember the day when I said, quit talking to me. And I cut it off. And as soon as I did that, the problems in my life started. Until, well, when I was in the 8th grade, I mean, it had gotten to the point where I had separated myself from my real true self so much that I was considering seriously suicide. And you know what I found out going around the country? That almost everyone at one point in their life has thought about suicide. Not that they take the action, but that they thought about it. And so at least then I felt, well, I wasn't so unnormal. But it wasn't until when I was 16 I had an experience that made me to where I couldn't turn my back on it anymore. Would you like to hear what that was?
Sure. It was like your reawakening?
Right.
Is that it?
It's
okay.
what made me realize that I can't ignore it anymore. I can't pretend. See, before I always thought, well, the majority must be right and I must be crazy. I must be a kook.
I'm different.
Right, I'm different.
Right.
And it wasn't until this experience happened that I said, well, look, I'm not saying that everyone else is wrong, but I can't deny what I know and how I grew up.
So what
the
happened?
experience, well, I was 16, living in Ohio, and all my friends were going to Florida for spring break. Well, I couldn't afford the plane ticket, so I said, well, I'll hitchhike. And of course, that was back in the days when it was safer to do
happened,
that.
right.
And I had hitchhiked around town, but never out cross country. So I headed out hitchhiking, and it was somewhere in Kentucky or Tennessee. A pickup truck stopped to pick me up. I put my bag in the back and opened the door, started to get in. This was on Interstate 75. And all of a sudden, I heard an outer voice say, get out of there, don't get in there.
Oh, wow.
And I was covered with goosebumps at the same time. Well, I knew what that was, the goosebumps particularly. And sometimes in my life, even prior to this, my team of helpers had communicated with me as an outer voice, but most of the time it's an inner voice, a thought process. I just wanted to make that clear.
Okay,
Doesn't
but
have to
you
be the
actually-
booming.
you heard this.
Right, it was like an
Okay.
outer voice. I thought maybe a police officer had pulled up behind me because, you know, it was illegal to hitchhike on the interstates. But anyway, I knew that I wasn't going to get in that truck because I knew what was going on then after a split second. So I told the driver, this will sound funny, but I'll wait for another ride. And he looked at me very perturbed, and he sped off. About 20 minutes later, I got another ride in a car, and about 30 minutes down the freeway, we passed this pickup truck. He had left the highway, smashed headlong into a cement bridge abutment supporting an overpass over the freeway, and the truck was on fire. Big traffic jam. It took us forever to get through the traffic jam of all this smoke billowing up. The person that was driving, that I had just gotten the ride with, said, boy, that must have been instantaneous death. He probably didn't know what hit him. And again, I'm covered with goosebumps just looking at this truck as we go by. I never said a word to the driver, though. And it was that made me realize I can't ignore this anymore.
No.
And I began to
At
then...
your peril, it would be to ignore it, sure.
And I think it was that point when I decided that I had to come out of the closet. I had to be real about what I had experienced all my life. And as soon as I made that commitment to myself, people were drawn to me who had had similar experiences or who were searching on a similar path. And now, I go nationwide teaching this course, teaching people how to use all the tools that are available to them as a powerful spiritual being. What tools can you use from the universe, from your own clairaudience, your own clairvoyance, your own intuition, all these things?
Well, what we've done is we have created a few lists of what you call your experiential techniques.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about those. But one thing that as I read your material, what I kept getting was that you're talking about a team effort. You're not in this alone. And you've kept making references to your angels
My
and your
team,
guides
yeah.
and your spirit guides and so forth.
Your team.
Okay, so you have a team that's working with you. And part of your course is to allow people to meet their spirit guides, their angels, and so forth. So you call this experiential techniques. But one that you started with was spiritual cleansing. What has to be cleaned up first? What's that
Okay.
about?
Every one of these techniques builds upon what you learned in the previous technique, and that's
Okay.
why the whole course has to be digested as it's given.
Step by step, but
Right.
experiential.
And the first experiential technique, and they're all experiential. Like I said, in the beginning of the course, there's a little bit of lecture part as we talk about the universe A through Z. The rest of the course is experiential, and I even tell people, don't believe a word I say just because I say it. Here, try this technique, which will enable you to have an experience of your own, and then draw your own conclusions. You should see the grins that come over their face the first time they know without a doubt that they have just heard their own team of spiritual helpers.
Aha.
Aha, it's the aha. But the spiritual cleansing technique is put first. It's a way for them to attune themselves to the highest that they're capable of at their point in their spiritual evolution.
Okay.
And I describe it this way in the course. We're all very powerful transmitters and receivers. Here I'm going to use a TV metaphor.
Okay.
Whether we realize it or not, our spiritual senses are constantly receiving and transmitting. That's thought transference or telepathy, or how many times have you entered a room and immediately started to feel a headache? Most people claim it, and they go, gee, I have a headache. Even as a small boy, I'd say, where's that headache coming from? I didn't have it just a moment ago. And I got to where I could look around the room and figure out who had the headache.
Yeah.
Walk up to them and go, how's your headache? And they say, how did you know I had a headache? Because I'm feeling it. This goes on whether we realize it or not. So all that technique does, and it's something that I've developed over the years, it allows them to tune their tuner to the highest possible vibration, therefore tuning in their spiritual guidance.
Okay.
And tuning out any negativity that might be around.
So you release the negativity and you open to the highest that you are ready for. So it's an awareness
Which puts
and
them in
openness.
communication with their spiritual team of helpers. They get covered with goosebumps.
Yeah.
Even the Bible refers to it as quickening of the flesh when the spirit draws near.
Yes.
Right.
So I bet for many people then that's when they start to just really feel that they are, this is a different course. They're really going to be there and be with that. Yeah.
Right,
That's
right.
exciting.
They're feeling like they're being hit over the head. Finally, their angels have their attention.
Yes. And we're going to talk about that, but I wanted to take a break because I want us to talk about the team that comes in, how they meet their guides and their angels, and perhaps people in our audience might be able to experience a little bit of that. Can you share some of that?
Well, it's so experiential that it is hard to talk about. I even tell people in the course, because by the end of the day they're just sitting there grinning, and I say, when you go home tonight and your spouse or your kids ask you, how was the course, you're going to find it difficult to tell them what you just experienced.
Okay, well, we'll give it a shot.
Okay.
And if you'll be, stay tuned and be right back with us, we're going to talk more about, the ahas.
Living in Balance on Wisdom Television will return after these messages.
The AHA course is experiential. The teacher of the course is Jon Grady, and we're so pleased to have him with us. But we also have a woman who has experienced the course, and she's going to be sharing with us too, and that's Dr. Adana Kay. So welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, you have experienced the course, and is it something wonderful that happened in your life? Was it empowering?
It's wonderful, it's empowering, it's unlike any other course you've probably ever been to, because when you're in the course, you know the changes are happening right then. You don't have to wait, you don't have to wonder. You are empowered in the moment to really know without a shadow of a doubt you can get the answers you need from within yourself.
Now, Jon said that many people have been on a spiritual path and are aware of it, and they have been studying many different things. Was that true of you before you took the course?
I don't even want to go into all that. Like 25 plus years, I've been into this all my life. I have studied, been to every class known to womankind. And when I found this class, it was like, this was it. This was the one. This was the aha that we talk about, that it just brings it all into focus. Where a lot of the other things, for me, you still wonder, how do I use this? There's no question. Once you spend a day in this course, you know how to incorporate in your life every single day.
Now, is it because there is a quickening for people who are ready? Is there a readiness in the student? Is that part of it?
I think that that's very much a part of it. They come into it, obviously, with an air of anticipation, and what they learn in the course just kind of pops them through to where they need to be, like the next step in their evolutionary process, their spiritual growth. It cements it for them.
Now, John, people really love to have an instant result. I mean, no matter what we do in our life, we really do want it to happen now because we're very busy. And like, I only have so much time, you know, for this. So if someone could get this result of awakened spirituality in a day's course, that would be very appealing, is it not?
I would think so.
Yeah.
So let's tell everybody about it.
Okay, well, we are going to talk about the experiential techniques. We're going to just kind of list those because you said basically you just about have to be there and do it. It's not something that you can teach over the television. But we do want people to know what they would experience because it is experiential. So after the spiritual cleansing comes the spirit guide and angel communication. Now that's really neat. Tell us just a little bit about that.
Right off the bat, most people think that the final goal is to learn how to communicate with their higher self or with their spirit guides, but right off the bat, I teach that because then everything else hinges on that. And it's simple techniques where they know without a doubt that they have broken through that veil and they have made contact. They can consciously ask and receive answers to any questions they might care to ask their team.
Their team, and I love
Right.
that because it's
their
a team
of
approach.
friends or whatever they want to call it.
Well,
Right.
and one of my friends that took the course called this the angel workshop because she thought of it so much from the perspective she was meeting her angels and remembering they were there to help her and guide her.
Well, that's one of the big tools, of course, that is available to us from the universe, but it's only one of the tools that they're going to learn in the course.
Okay, well, the other experiential part goes through some of those gifts that we think of, and one of them is clairaudience, and that's where you're hearing. Is that what you were talking about with the inner voice and also with the outer voice?
Right, exactly so. We all have 5 physical senses, but we also have basically 4 spiritual senses. One of them is clairaudience, clear audio, clear hearing. And so we develop that in the course and use it as part of the angel communication, because that's the next step. They'll actually start to hear the thoughts of their own team. And then we go on into the other senses too, where clairvoyance, clear vision, we strengthen that gift, and they'll be getting messages from their team through their mind's eye, through images.
Okay, well, you also talk about automatic writing. Now, is that hearing the voice? How is that experienced
Well,
usually?
true automatic writing is more of a clairsentient experience.
Okay.
But I do a version, since I'm just beginning them, I do a version called automatic dictation, to where it does have to do with clairaudience, which they've already been shown, and they're hearing it, but they're writing. But then many of them in the course do just drift right into automatic writing instead of automatic dictation, and they just start writing, and pretty soon the handwriting changes, and off they go.
And you mentioned the clairvoyance, and that is where you actually have the visual, where you get the
Right.
picture.
Right.
Okay, and
That's
that one
taught.
is the one that many people are aware of already. I mean, that they do, like, whether they think it's imagination, you know, they are getting a visual of the angel or the messenger.
What's so fun about this is the first technique that I teach, basic angel communication, we use as a verifier. So later when they are dealing in the thought process, I'll start them out by saying, ask your team to give you one word, and a word pops into their mind. Then they go back to the verifying technique, which gives you through physical sensation the answer, and they will say, team, did that word come from all of you? And they get a yes, and they go, oh, wow. You know?
Okay, yeah, I've had that taught, and that really is effective because then you know you've got a qualifier is basically what it is.
Exactly,
And it's
exactly.
a confirmation because we never know where the information's coming from sometimes, and so you have to get used to that. Now, what did you find was the most powerful experiential technique for you? What was really awakened for you, Adana, in the experience?
I think that through all the techniques, I've found a lot of strengthening. For me personally, the writing is something that I have really taken to, and I like to do it sitting at my computer because I can really sit there and just get into it and get incredible messages. First, it was like a sentence, a page. Now it's many pages, and so it's a very quick, easy technique to learn, and anybody can do it. Everybody can do it.
And so it's just opening to that, and that's what your job is to help people open to their abilities that are natural to them.
I'm basically passing on to the people in the course the different techniques and the way I was taught by my own team. Because after my experience at 16, I said, okay, I'm with you guys. What do we do? And the next, well, still going on, they're teaching me through these different techniques. But what was interesting was they were teaching me in a way that was to teach it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And
so that you can share
to
it.
make it clear with
Right.
other people. And that's where these techniques, these experiential techniques all came from. Because they would say, try this, John, and I would try it. Well, now I'm at the front of the room saying, everybody try this, and they get the same result I did.
Now, how many are on our team, for example? What's the average person have
Well,
in their spirit guide and angel
If a
repertoire?
person, in my experience, if a person has come to planet Earth to learn and grow by working with things, they usually have 4 or less. If they come to learn and grow by working with people, they usually have 4 or more.
Okay. And I wanted to bring in your approach to the past life regression because you do feel that that's important, the past lives and the past life regression therapies. But you look at it as not just to do it, to find out who we used to be, but to heal something or to find an awareness.
Yeah, I don't do, everything I do has to be very practical, that you can do it in the shower, you can do it driving your car, because that's the way I was taught. And so just to find out about a past life out of curiosity's sake, what? You know, why? That veil of forgetfulness at birth is there for a reason, so that you don't linger in the past. So what I do is a past life regression therapy. Part of the course, too, is teaching people how do they sabotage themselves, how do they shoot themselves in the foot so that they're not self-empowered spiritually. And to do that, I have a whole section called Be Your Own Counselor, where I teach them to understand their blocks, their programming, the things that are holding them back. And then once they get that, then we're moving into the past life experience. Everybody will experience. First, they ask their team, show me a past life of mine.
Working with their team all the time.
Right, because they've already been taught that.
Yeah.
And so, show me a past life of mine that is still influencing me in this life adversely.
Okay. So
And the whole past
healing.
life experience happens, and they re-experience it, and they understand it, and with the tools and techniques that they're also taught in the course, they know how to deal with it, get rid of it.
Now, the last thing that we're going to mention is the love circle. And, and that we have just a minute, but what it's like, it sounded like so lovey-dovey and everybody just appreciates the unconditional love from the other. And is that kind of what it is, a mutual appreciation of the others in the course?
Well, kind of, but with more of a purpose too, because, I mean, basically everybody in their search in life, basically, if you boil it down, people are searching to find unconditional love, because that's our true nature. As a spiritual being, that's our true nature. Anything we've done to separate ourselves from that is something we need to resolve in order to get back to it.
I appreciate what you have done, and thank you so much for sharing your testimonial with us. And if you would like to experience the ahas, we'll show you how you can be in touch with John Grady. It is wonderful to meet the people who have found their purpose, and with John Grady, it is the Ah-Haa course, and where people can meet their team and have an empowering spiritual experience. Until next time, I'm Georgia Shakti-Hill. May you be well, happy, and peaceful.